3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, August 19th, 2018. It's Sunday. I hope you're having a good start to the week. In this video, I want to go over three things. Number one, I want to go over this interesting article and tweet talking about market demand for Bitcoin. Number two, I want to talk briefly about yesterday, go over some things that happened at Litecoin Meetup on the East Coast at Giovanni's Deli. It was ridiculous. It was so fun. I want to talk about that. And then lastly, we're going to jump into Bitcoin price movement and momentum. What next for resistance, support? Where could we possibly be headed? If you have interest in any three of those things, I'll put some timestamps. You can hop right over to those things, check it out. But let's jump in. So half of remaining unminted Bitcoin already spoken for, says CoinShares CEO. And you can see UK cryptocurrency investment products and research firm CoinShares has called for Bitcoin to get a new narrative to drive consumer interest and lift prices to new highs. And in a series of tweets and a Medium post, August 17th, CEO Ryan Radloff explained how Bitcoin could follow in the footsteps of companies such as Amazon and Microsoft, whose shares deflated in the year 2000, then exploded to new heights over a long period. So it says, so why did companies that are so clearly viable in hindsight take so long to reclaim their high valuations from Y2K? Because they needed a new narrative. When you come down from great heights, the growth story is harder to see. And most people then and now are investing in the future growth story. So I'm bringing this up because I love this perspective. And I'm not going to go through this entire tweet because he has a ton of content here. But I'll post a link in the description and I'll go over a little bit of it. But I did a video a week or two ago talking about Bitcoin's value, right? Everybody's talking about how is Bitcoin valued? Where is it even coming from? And it's really simple. It's demand, right? So Ryan in this tweet is talking about future demand of Bitcoin and where that might come from and how that might, speak to new all-time highs. So he says, hot take, over half of the remaining non-minted Bitcoin are already spoken for. Keep reading before you tell me I'm wrong. And I love how he digs into this. When I meet with legacy investors, I often get asked, who in the world owns this stuff? This is usually followed by, okay, and who will? What these people really want to understand is potential future demand, or the classic concept of total addressable market, TAM. A few weeks ago, I came across this survey, and he posted this survey. It caught my eye because for the first time I can remember, due to results and sample size of over 14,000, I have what I need to build a data-driven base to start determining potential TAM. Applying these results, imperfect I know, see chart, we can calculate that roughly 99 million people across the US, European Union, and Australia expect to own crypto in the future, but don't currently. And again, I'll post this link so you can dig into what he's posting here. And then he goes on, at today's prices, $6,500, if these people each put as little as 100 in Bitcoin, that would amount to increased demand of 1.9 million Bitcoins. Said differently, roughly half of the remaining non-minted supply. I just love where he's going with this. And it goes on, and I'll put a link in the description, but really, really interesting outlook on Bitcoin. And I love this one, where he talks about needing a new narrative, because he asks, why did companies that are so clearly viable in hindsight take so long to reclaim their high valuations from Y2K? He says, because they needed a new narrative, bro. I love how he says, bro. When you come down from great heights, the growth story is harder to see, and most people then and now are investing in the future growth story. And it's so true. And I don't want to take too much time on this, but read through it because it's powerful. It is such a good, true, solid perspective on the markets. If you're interested in price, future demand, read through what he's saying here. Read through the research that he's putting out there. He's taking real good data and putting together, obviously speculative, but really strong case for future growth of Bitcoin. So I'll put the link in the description, but really interesting if you're interested in the price of Bitcoin and where it might be headed. So secondly, yesterday was ridiculous. This was really my first meetup in terms of cryptocurrency, right? And we met up at Giovanni's Deli in New Jersey, And I posted a little bit ago, this was one of the pictures from yesterday. I said, felt right at home with these fellas yesterday. There's much to learn from each one of them because there is. These guys, everybody that was at this meetup has their own unique talents, their own unique passion, their own unique outlook. And I love just learning from those perspectives from these guys. So in this picture, we have Nick LTC, we have John Kim, Boiling Point, which is Rob, and then we have Johnny Litecoin, John Moore over here. And we're just talking, brainstorming. John, you know, and these guys will be doing the New York meetup on Tuesday, and that's basically what we were talking about. I won't be able to make that, but really exciting times for Litecoin. Yesterday was really cool. I also posted, or I retweeted Dom, who is the owner of the Giovanni's Deli that we met up with. We were giving away free Litecoin. We were documenting it, buying people's lunches on yesterday's live stream. But he posted yesterday, I've known these people for a while, but I only met them today, and all I can say is it feels like family. And it's true. You know, not to sound cheesy or anything, but man, it's just cool to just get together with these guys, like-minded fellas. Victoria was there as well. She's not in this picture. But we just had a great time really collaborating, brainstorming, talking about the future of cryptocurrency, and telling people that don't even know about it and buying them lunch, right? It was a really cool time. You can see the picture there. I got to take a picture with Dom, and really cool guy. And I have to say, unbelievable food. I don't even know where to start. But you can see in the background right there, he accepts Litecoin and Bitcoin, obviously. And it was just an awesome day. And if you missed it, I'll put a link to yesterday's live stream because I tweeted it yesterday. I said insane live stream in case you missed it. And then really just a really cool time. So I'll put a link there. I'll also put a link to part of the interview that I did yesterday. It was my first interview ever, so go easy on me. It's something I think I need to get better at, to be honest. But I had a really good time. Part of it, I tweeted when I was interviewed today. They asked me about the future of cryptocurrency, and I think my answer surprised them. And I say that because their face when I said this, the interviewer looked more interested in my answer as opposed to previous answers because of what I said. And what I said was, part of the future of cryptocurrency is failure, which is true. I'll put a link in the description if you want to dig into more of what I was talking about there. So here's a tweet, and we're going to jump into Bitcoin price right now. We're going to talk about Bitcoin price, where it might be headed, what's going on. And I tweeted this Friday, I guess, about Thursday night's live stream. I said, last night's live stream got crazy. It's a beautiful mess. And this is the chart, right? We were messing around with charting on Thursday night live stream. And we were talking about, what we talk about all the time, possible uptrend, right? A bullish uptrend, or a possible bearish downtrend with new lower lows. So since this area, we were at $6,500. Right now we're at $6,300, give or take. And I want to dig into what has happened since Thursday night and what might be happening next in terms of Bitcoin price movement. So here's the daily chart. You can see it on the screen. One thing I just want to start with really briefly is you can see on the stock RSI, we've gotten some nice momentum up, right, over the last couple days or so. And we're approaching, and it's something to look out for, we're approaching that overbought area, right? And right now in the middle of kind of, we had a red day yesterday, and then we have this red candle developing right now. We'll see how today's daily closes. But we can see real quick, just on the daily chart, a nice snapshot zoomed out. We're going to jump into the 4-hour to really talk about the possibilities of what might be next for Bitcoin. Before we do, I do want to point one thing out, which is to say there are two head and shoulders in play right now. I mean, that's just the bottom line. One is extremely long-term bullish. The other is more short-term bearish, right? And I'll show you these right now. First, I will show you the long-term bullish because we've been talking about it for a while now. The long-term bullish is this one. On the weekly, you get a really nice picture of it. Right now, I'm on the daily, but here is the inverse head and shoulders possibly forming. If support holds here and we bounce up and break this previous area, and break this neckline, we have a nice looking reverse head and shoulders on the longer term area. You can see it on the daily, we just did it, and you can see it on the weekly even more clearly. So that's in play still, right? We haven't broken this right shoulder, but it's in formation possibly. Short-term bearish head and shoulders is not a reverse head and shoulders, it's an actual head and shoulders on the daily, and you can see it here. Possible right shoulder in formation on the daily for a continued downtrend. That's what that would look like. Here's the neckline, here's the continued downtrend on the head and shoulders. So we have two obvious directions to possibly go, up or down. There's no secret there. But if you want to be able to track this on the shorter time frames, we can. So what we want to track is, and this is where we can kind of take those patterns, right? Those broader patterns, their head and shoulders and inverse head and shoulders, and we can start digging into it on the shorter time frames. So right now on the 4-hour time frames. And one thing to use in terms of digging into it are our moving averages. So we have the pink line, the 200 EMA, we have the 50 EMA, which is the blue line. And one thing that is true in these uptrends and downtrends is the support and resistance of that 50 EMA, right? And the 200 EMA. So let's start with the 50 EMA. In uptrends, we see it all the time. Overextension, pullback, right? But it always acts as support. So in a downtrend, and these are just typical momentum patterns. They go back years, the history of Bitcoin, it just happens. And now we have a downtrend, same exact thing, but reverse, no support, but resistance. Downtrend, overextended pullback, downtrend, pullback, right? Downtrend, pullback. So right now we're at an interesting area in terms of these movements of overextension, and we have a really nice bottom of consolidation that has happened over the last, few weeks or so, couple weeks. And so right now where we find ourselves is right at that 50 EMA. And we're in the middle of this pretty much a symmetrical triangle happening right now with these lower highs and these higher lows. And right now we're kind of at the bottom of this triangle. So on the short term, if you really want to track this, first thing you would do is, first thing I would do, we have this rejection at the 50 EMA. 50 EMA rejection. We broke through but fell back below the 50 EMA. And then we have a little bit of rejection most recently, over the last 8 hours or so, 8 to 12 hours, rejection at the 50 EMA. So as we're getting squeezed into this area of the bottom of this triangle and this 50 EMA, this is really an area that you can look out for going into tomorrow in terms of, are we going to kind of squeeze back above and break through that 50 EMA resistance for a second time, right, and approach the top of this triangle. So we're going to break through the 50 EMA, approach the top of the triangle, and finally break that triangle, right, for a breakout? Or are we going to see that continued resistance at the 50 EMA and break through the bottom of the triangle? So breaking through the bottom of the triangle for us, and I have notes here, I wrote a break below symmetrical triangle could confirm the not inverse, I messed up there, let me get rid of that. Could confirm the head and shoulders on the daily, that bearish, short-term bearish head and shoulders on the daily that we just talked about, setting up for next lower target at $5,500. And if you watched our video the other day, I believe we talked about it on the live stream and maybe even previous videos, we have the $5,500 target mainly because that's that 20% overextension, that sweet spot area, overextension from the 200 EMA on the daily, which in downtrends Bitcoin tends to do, right? Especially if possible bottoms are broken, that overextension, that sell-off could happen, at levels of 20%, even 25%. So that really brings us right around that $5,500 area. And that $5,500 area could be a nice accumulation area before we get a pullback, because the same thing happens. We talked about the same thing happening on the 50 EMA, right? These overextensions, pullback, overextension, pullback. The same thing happens in downtrends, just a little bit more steeply on the 200 EMA. It gets pulled back to the 200, right? That 20%, 25%, even 30% overextension is a nice accumulation area on the shorter term if you're looking for, short-term trading. That's not financial advice. I don't do that, but I use these 20% dips overextensions from the 200 EMA to accumulate comfortably, because it's always nice to buy those dips and then you're riding it back up and you feel good about your short-term investment. But obviously, if you're long on Bitcoin, if you're long on Litecoin, if you're long on any cryptocurrency, it really in the long run doesn't matter too much. However, it's nice for morale. I always say that it's nice for your mental health to buy dips and then see 20% gains over the next week, 2 weeks. It's good for your mental health. So that's kind of where we are right now with Bitcoin. So on the short term, you can track this triangle. You can follow on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, I basically, I try and update price movements a little bit more often over there. But this is what I'll be personally tracking. Let me know your thoughts. How are you doing? Are you bullish or bearish right now? I am kind of just tracking this. I'm not either or, but very interested to see what Bitcoin does next. I really appreciate you hanging out on this Sunday. I will see you in the next video, and God bless.